Okay, I'm live. What I'm doing is I'm going to do a bit of a slideshow, and I'm basically tonight just going to run through a few things that I've been looking at with regard to childhood trauma. And hi there, I'm going to read from some slides tonight. I've got some Carl Gustav Jung, some of his work up. So I've made some nice slides to run through. So what I'm doing is basically looking at childhood trauma. I've been reading this book. Can you hear me okay as well? Because my last live, I think the sound was really low. So if you can let me know if you can hear me, that would be really good. I think you can. So what we have is that I was reading from Trauma and the Soul. I'm on chapter 7 of this book now, and I've been reading it every night. I've been reading this book. It's like a book that I haven't put down, and it's really really touching my soul. It's like taken me into another level of my own healing. And what we have is that my first book that I started with was Pete Walker, which was Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, which is the roadmap to getting out of complex PTSD. When I started reading this book in November 2017, I got to a point where I began to be able to heal some deep trauma that was going on in me. So it's important that we don't try and bypass the reality of the pain that's been caused in childhood. And this book is a map that will take you right through what you need to do in order to heal. So please do get this book. There are links below, and on Audible USA it's free, and it's also free on Kindle UK, Amazon UK. So do take this book on, and there's also a list in there of how to manage flashbacks below my video as well, and how to basically deal with the inner critic. Because what happens is the disassociation starts with this inner critic, this inner persecutor. When we've been through child abuse, we will persecute ourselves as we were persecuted. It's a really tricky situation to be in. It causes many problems in adulthood, and it's a very hard thing for many to get over. I used to drink, for people who watch me regularly, I used to drink on my childhood pain and self-medicate, and that was my way through it. And I stopped drinking in 2012, and then it was a slow falling into the pits of hell, because the more I had nothing to disassociate, like, the drugs, or my choice of drug was alcohol, and cigarettes, which I both stopped both of those. When I gave those up, there was nowhere else to go. The pain was really, really deep inside me. And it's only through knowledge and reading and having therapy that I've begun to really pick myself up and become the person that I truly am. And that's part of Carl Gustav Jung's work, which is becoming whole, which is quite misunderstood, because we're always a work in progress. So those two books, I'm not going to read anything from that book today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to bring up some brilliant slides to discuss, which I think is really important for people to maybe look at. And let's see here if I can go share my screen. Let's see if I get it right. And I'm going to go maybe here. Okay, so I'm going to go to my first slide. Hopefully these slides come up, but I'll be able to see in a minute. The plan is that I should have my slides that are going to pop up in a moment. Let's see, because I can't see if it's, yes, we got it. Okay, so the point is that if anybody speaks, I might be able to see from my mobile phone if anybody makes any messages. If you can see the slides, I think I can, so it will be that anybody else watching can as well. So what we have is that we have the idea that knowledge is power. And often when we've been traumatized in the disassociation, we basically aren't looking for knowledge, we're just looking for relief. So that relief may mean that we, overeat, undereat, codependent relationships. It can be, recreational drugs. It can be, it could be the internet. It could be all sorts of things. It could be people abusing it for looking at porn. It can be, what else? We can number so many different things that people do when they disassociate. So in that, the whole point is that the more knowledge we get about CPTSD, complex PTSD, which is not a disorder, it is a reaction to events that have happened similar to PTSD, but CPTSD is a more severe form of PTSD. Complex PTSD is more severe because it's happened in childhood when the brain was developing. So we've got nothing to go back to prior to a time when things were okay. Whereas in PTSD, generally we've got a time prior to that where things were okay. So it's probably easier to, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier to stabilize. But complex PTSD is going to take knowledge and it's going to take work. So now what I'm going to do is, let's see, go to the next slide. And what we have is we've got a saying here by Carl Gustav Jung. And the whole point of this is to really help us think and maybe go to another level in our psyche. So Carl Gustav Jung, some of his quotes, and this one, and I've got a few others as well, not just all him, but I've got a few of his. So he says, the world of the inner is as infinite as the outer. So the inner world, when it's been messed around with and we've been traumatized, we basically will go into disassociation, which means that we have something called arrested development. And that infinite, beautiful world where children play and they have, this beautiful imagination, that gets crushed. It's like the soul is crushed in childhood and through, either sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, or spiritual abuse. And what we're trying to rectify or remedy is the fact that this lost inner child with this beautiful infinite world that's had it crushed, we want to regain that. So the whole point of doing the inner work is getting to a point of regaining that life of that inner child, bringing that child back to life. It's like resuscitating that child inside us so that we can go to new highs and better levels of living rather than just feeling like we're living a dead sort of life and that we're damaged and there's something wrong with us. And also I will say, if anybody is here, I can't see any messages come up, but if I do see, then I will answer as I go, but I can't see any on my mobile phone. And I don't know how many people are watching either. So this is a beautiful flower. I love this. I took this in a flower shop a few weeks ago, and the light in there and the, how infinite, we can see infinity in a flower. And that inner child in us, needs to be resurrected. And only we can do that. And we need to know that we have to do that. We have to access that inner child that's been damaged and lost in us. And the next slide. This is a beautiful one. And a friend of mine took this picture. They were on holiday and they took this beautiful picture. And you see the bears there, like the child and the beautiful bear. And there's the mother bear looking after her babies. So the saying that Carl Gustav Jung says here, he says that as far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. So if we think about this, we can see that we do need to get to a place where we're rekindling, we're bringing light to the darkness. And again, knowledge is going to do that. So the books that I'm suggesting, which is the Complex PTSD book, I highly recommend that you get that. And there you can get a free copy below, not from me, but from Audible, USA Audible, or you go to Kindle UK Amazon and you get a free copy of this book to begin your healing process instead of being down in the dumps and thinking that your life is over. It's not. We're here to really turn this childhood stuff around. We've got here, so if we can see that as far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. So we do that for each other. So I've been through all of this horrendous child abuse and it took up years of my life, and I was in a business that I absolutely hated and was working very hard, making money, buying my wine, self-medicating, and life was pretty crap, I have to say. I was able to do nice things and buy nice things, but ultimately I wasn't following my soul calling. And now that I am, I'm much happier. And we need to really get the knowledge of what we like as well. So we have to really begin to look at our lives. The next one I'm going to go to is, this is beautiful. And I love the the sky. Some of you may know that I study evolutionary astrology. It's a tool I use to help people look at trauma and the symbolism in a birth chart. When we have the time of birth, we can see where our trauma has played out in our lives and how we can begin to decondition that. So it's really important that we are aware that astrology is not just all about, oh, you're going to have a fantastic week and win the lottery and stuff like that. Astrology is very deep, and Carl Gustav Jung used astrology with 500 of his own patients, and his daughter also studied astrology as well. I'm just going to have a sip of water. And I don't think anybody is making any comments at the moment or who's watching, but I'm just going to keep going as I go. And I'm sure it's going to be useful to somebody what I'm putting out here. Right. So I love this image, just absolutely stunning. The reality of the infinity of being on this planet. We're flying through space at 67,000 miles an hour. So it's quite incredible. And bless us, those who have been traumatized as children, because it's very difficult to see the beauty. We can get stuck in not seeing it. And for some of us, the escapism is into the beauty. It's the other end of the other extreme, that we're not able to live in the world. There's sort of a lack of balance. So Carl Gustav Jung said here, he said, God is the name by which I designate all things which cross my path violently and recklessly, all things which alter my plans and intentions and change the course of my life for better or worse. And what I would say about this slide is that, and what he's saying here, is that I was very angry with the idea of God, and, how does God let, children be abused? And the point is, God is within us. It's in our psyche. It's not separate to us. It's not something outside ourselves. It's the totality of all of the planets, what we're doing here, and all of the interactions. We're all not mini gods, but we've all got it in us, and we're all sharing and we're all helping each other. And there are some unpleasant people in the world. That's part of life. We've just seen that with the Epstein case, and all of the trafficking and the public figures involved in that. So we can see that the world is not just, we can't bypass the reality of what's going on. But I do believe there is something more than just being a human on this earth, and, the angelic forces and whatever. So I could go on about that. Sorry, I can't see anybody chatting if you are, but I will come back to that shortly. Next slide is another picture of my friend, of this bird, beautiful bald eagle in flight. So I think it's a bald eagle. So it says, flying off on his own, or she. Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself, or from holding certain views which others find inadmissible. So when I first started talking about my abuse, I found that people were saying things to me like, oh, you've got to forgive them, they are your parents, or let it go, it's in the past, what's wrong with you, are you a masochist? Or I heard some awful stuff. It's like, we need to know that we need to be able to grieve our childhood in order to evolve it. And we need somebody to witness our stories. So this means that we have to go and get therapy or do something, or find a friend who we can, bash out our history with, because when, we're not here to take that crap to our graves, and our soul needs to evolve that. So however we do it, whether we do it through, there are so many ways of doing it. We can do it through reading, we can do it through nature, we can do it through, our religious studies or religious beliefs, but there's not going to be one thing that fixes us. But we do, again, need the basic CPTSD knowledge to understand, because we can't just hand it over to God. We can't hand over to God what we don't understand. The whole point of the psyche and people like Carl Gustav Jung was to dig deeper and get into understanding what the hell is going on for us. So it's okay and it's safe. We're in a place now in history where we can talk about these things. There are some countries in the world where people still can't talk about sexual abuse. But if we're in, like I'm in the UK, or if you're in the USA, we can begin to stand up and, deal with our pain, and we're able to grieve as well. Next slide. So this is a beautiful image I found on Google, and it says, consciousness and understanding arise from discrimination. That is through analysis, dissolution followed by synthesis as stated in the symbolical terms by the alchemal dictum, and I don't know how he would say that, solve et coagula, I think, so dissolve and coagulate, and that's Jung, and that's from the book Aeon, and it's page 260. Now the thing is that, you know, these beautiful animals you see here, or not animals, you know, it sounds strange calling them animals, but they're beautiful, these you know, these monkeys, and the reality of, you know, that they have consciousness and we have consciousness, and there is no separation. And you know, we've got a psyche, like their psyche is quite evolved, you know, as a species. You know, they understand a hell of a lot of things, so we can see like the love there, and you know, the communication and the touch that's going on. It's, you know, there's a lot of love in this world, so that's the other thing we will come back to as we resurrect our inner child that needs all of this love and beauty, and we can bring that child back to life. You know, it's very difficult. You know, I couldn't connect in with my own inner child because, you know, I just remember this, you know, sad child that I was, and, you know, away with the fairies. It's like I really, you know, I used to play on my own. I didn't get involved with anybody as a child. And I've been like that as an adult, but I'm okay with that now. And thanks to social media, I've got, you know, very many like-minded friends now, and many people who've helped me heal, many beautiful souls that I've come across, and in real life as well now. I've sort of blossomed, come out of myself. And the next slide is, this is Carl Gustav Jung. He passed in 1961. And he says here that a psychoneurosis must be understood ultimately as the suffering of a soul which has not discovered its meaning. So I would say, I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, but all of these labels that are given to people by, you know, the medical world, you know, ADHD, bipolar, the this, the that, and the list can go on forever. So clearly, there are going to be serious cases of, you know, mental health disturbances out there. But for a lot of us, it's that we're not being understood, that we're suffering. We're being told that we're not supposed to suffer, and we're supposed to be over our suffering before we've even processed it. And this is not the way to heal. You know, the suffering of a soul will discover its meaning through grieving. Like, we get to the point of understanding ourselves eventually. So next slide. This is another picture, beautiful, of the moon. And the moon is our emotions in astrology. So, and the moon rules the sign of Cancer in astrology. And the moon also resembles mother. And the moon also affects the tides and the oceans on the earth. And it affects, we're made of water as well. So we have our moods and emotions. And Carl Gustav Jung says, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Now, I have to say that I've lived that, and it's absolute truth. And he did himself, he had a breakdown, I think in his late 30s, maybe I'm wrong on that, or maybe 40, around that age. He had his own breakdown, and that's how the Red Book, Carl Gustav Jung, that's how his book came about. I could go deeper there, but, I'm just running through these slides. So again, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And as we come to consciousness of the pain that we've been through, we will evolve it. And it means that the gap of pain, the gap closes and we're more in a balanced state. But again, knowledge, power, knowing. And this is a boat, another picture from my friend there. And then it says, when a great ship is in a harbour and moored, it is safe. There can be no doubt, but that is not what great ships are built for. And that's Clarissa Pinkola Ptsd, if that's correct. So she wrote Women Runs with Walls. And this is a beautiful saying. And the truth is that if you think about it, that great ships, are not made to stay in their harbour. So we're not supposed to stay stuck in our pain. We're supposed to go and explore our own stormy seas to find out who we are. And we need to do that. Okay, so I encourage it. And there are groups on Facebook. I have a ladies group that deals with anxiety. That's a very safe space with about 450 ladies in for the ladies. And for the guys, there are groups that I can put you in touch with as well. And the next slide. So the archetypes, so angels, for me, when I go to bed at night, but as I've been healing, I call in archangels. I call in Jesus. I say, Jesus, be with me. Archangel Michael, be with me. And Archangel Gabriel, be with me. So archetypes can be saviors to us that's one way that we can begin to heal as well, by using archetypes and belief systems that serve us. So an example would be that an archetype is a certain person or a thing. It's a primitive mental image inherited from the earliest human ancestors and supposed to be present in the collective unconscious. So you could say to anybody in this world, that's an adult, you could say the word angel, and everybody will have their own image of what an angel is, as an example. And it's imprinted in us. It's very deep in us. And something else I'd like to bring up, synchronicity. So, how we're going through life, and something will happen. And synchronicity, the actual word was coined by Carl Gustav Jung. And Jung defined synchronicity as being a causal, connecting, togetherness principle, meaningful coincidence, and a causal parallelism. So the beautiful thing about that is that, we can see the synchronicities that come up that also help us heal. Like we might be thinking something and then a book will come up. Like for me, I believe in the soul and my own soul. And when I began to read The Trauma and the Soul, it was a coincidence. It was a synchronistic moment which has brought something into my life which has taken my healing to another level. So I could go on there, but he introduced that concept as early as 1920. This is a bit of knowledge. So knowledge is power, as I said at the beginning of these slides. And a causal parallelism, meaning synchronicity, describes events that are causally unrelated and yet meaningful, that we would call it a meaningful coincidence. What else have I got for you? Okay, so this is a bit about me. I'm not going to stay on this slide, but it's what I do. I'm facilitating and helping people resolve life's unresolved problems. And that's what I'm doing. And I use evolutionary astrology. So next slide is that the disclaimer is I am not a medical practitioner, and I'm not here to diagnose or treat any medical issues, but I am here. I'm going to come out of screen now, stop share. I am here to share what I believe to be, helpful to other people and to help other people heal. I can see lots of messengers there now. I can see, let me have a look here. Ronfano says, Trauma and the Soul is very interesting prospect of a book. It is. It's absolutely blown my mind. I can't tell you what it's done for me. And I haven't finished yet. I've got 3 more chapters to go. And then Ronfan69 says, though I have not yet purchased it, from what I gather from the synopsis, it seems to focus on the connection between psychoneurosis and spiritual. Yes, psychoneurosis and spiritual experience, but it's a lot more than I thought I was getting. It's taken me on a beautiful journey. And say there are 3 levels of consciousness, you're saying. I don't know if I can say there are 3 levels. I think we're infinite in levels of whatever. We'll all come up with our own idea though. I'm going to skip through these and correct me if this isn't really the theme of the book. I think the best thing is to get the book. It's not the cheapest book around, but it was £30 UK, and I think it's $40. But to be honest with you, the content of it is going to help me help other people, and it's really taken me to another level and appreciation of, how my soul was shattered, and I wasn't just making it up as a child, and that pain was real. And it talks a lot about dreams as well, which Carl Gustav Jung mentioned. He did very much dream work, and in his own work he looked at his own dreams. So I think that's it for today. I've got 3 viewers, and what I'm going to do is leave it there. I'm going to be back, I think, over the weekend with some astrology and do a bit of astrology teaching online and live and show you my chart and stuff like that. But I think that's it for today, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. I thank you, Ronfano69, for watching, and anybody else who's watching as well. And I'll be back over the weekend. Catch you later. Thank you.